Hey Mim.
Hey Scarlett.
Welcome back, guys. You're listening to StyleOverSubstance.
We're just two friends talking about our experiences working inside the fashion industry and also our observations from outside the fashion industry. It's sometimes serious, but it's definitely always a good laugh.
Always. We release new episodes every Tuesday.
So subscribe on your favorite podcast listening platforms. So you know what I realised?
Tell me.
Oh, no, not realised, but like I appreciate, Halsey, the singer.
Yeah.
Don't you think she's incredibly beautiful?
Of course, yeah.
It's like mind-boggling, Like, I think we're a little bit too used to everyone we see who are like big celebs always having had work done. Now, I don't know for certain if she's had work done, but I've never heard of rumors that she's had work done. I don't really know. And I'm just like, wow, do you look like that in like naturally?
Yeah, that's actually a really good point of that. We're just used to really beautiful people anyway, because that's what a celebrity is. We forget that what have they had done to maybe get them there, or what little tweaks and helps have they had. But when someone really like naturally beautiful comes along, we sort of forget to celebrate that.
Well, I don't know her, so I mean, me celebrating how beautiful she is a bit.
Well, you're celebrating her now. Snaps for Halsey and how beautiful
yeah,
she
true. That is true. Yeah, we can get a bit like not desensitized, but a little bit. We just can't believe it. Like, wow, someone that good looking has to be. You have to have had work done.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. But how are you feeling?
You know what? I've got like a bit of a husky voice, I feel like today. I feel like
a bit froggy.
I don't know, but I really like it. It's like, oh, I actually have an interesting voice now. Whereas normally I think I sound like an absolute dude. So I'm really sorry.
No, you don't. Not at all. You don't.
But I feel like my voice has now got a little something, But no, I'm good. I'm tired, but I really hope that doesn't translate. I'm going to pull through. Yeah. And so I feel a bit rusty as well. Confession, we did a bit of pre-recording.
Yeah, because you were on holiday.
Because I went away. And so it feels like it's been so long.
It does, yeah. I wasn't going to mention that.
I know, but I just kind of thought more because I wanted to talk about like what my fashion story is this week is sort of a bit like after the fact.
What's your fashion story?
I'm going to hop into it, I think.
Yeah.
So obviously there was the Met Gala first Monday of May, and looks are looks. Well, it's been
gone. I'm not doing it. Yeah.
But a thing that sort of swept the internet a little bit is Kim K, who notoriously wore Marilyn Monroe's dress, sort of saying that she had to lose 16 pounds for it. And just the controversy that had, and the amount of girls that I've sort of seen on Instagram in the last few days sort of being like, and you know what? I ordered a dress that fit me. Or like, like those sorts of comments of like, I just ordered a size that fit me. And obviously it was because she was trying to fit into an exact dress. But I mentioned to you as well is that we were led to believe that Marilyn Monroe was this like curvy plus size lady. And Kim K's a small man. Like I know she's got some like a bit of a booty, but she's
small.
She's small. And so the fact that she was having to starve herself for 3 weeks to get into a dress first of all, is kind of awful for her to be admitting that. But also made me just think Marilyn was not this like bodacious lady that we were all led to. But I mean, she maybe had boobs and a bum, but that yeah
I get what you mean. First, I don't think it's that bad that Kim K has admitted that she purposely lost weight to fit into Marilyn's dress. I mean, honesty is honesty, and I appreciate it. I don't think that we have to avoid telling people those details because they might copy her. Like, come on, her audience is largely adults. She's not saying do what I do. And I mean, she's already had a lot of work done. So her admitting that she maybe had a rather unhealthy relationship with her body is not really any surprise to any of us. So I don't really, think it's that detrimental to her followers to admit, you know what, I had to lose weight to get into this and it was tough, but I did it. But yeah, secondly, you're right. The fact that we were always led to believe that, Marilyn was really curvy and women back then were curvier and this, that, and the other. And you're right, it's a shock to a lot of people, including myself. But I think there's a lot of nuance to. I think Marilyn Monroe was probably curvier at the beginning of her career, potentially.
Yeah, I agree. I think because I've seen pictures as well, and I've seen her look bigger than Kim looked in that dress. So that's all I guess we can gauge it from. And she probably then lost weight with the pressure of career or whatever. Yeah,
I mean, career also. She
drugs
has, famously known for taking a lot of drugs. And she looked, if you see the picture of Marilyn in that dress, her like décolletage looks quite slim, like up top. So I don't think she was probably her heaviest that time. I will say that I think she was probably a lot softer. Do you know what I mean? Like, in terms of build,
not toned. Not toned.
Yeah.
Like Kim is the most toned. Like, I bet it doesn't even move.
A lot of celebrities are expected to be quite muscular, perky, and that just wasn't the vibe in the late 50s and early 60s.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think also, in that time, illusions of curves and corsetry and having that really pulled in waist, which I'm pretty sure everyone was sucking in their stomachs back then. But that pulled in waist and that kind of curvy aesthetic was the thing that we've all kind of, when we look back at that time period, that's what we always think about. But these women were proportionally quite small. They were just maybe curvier than a lot of the celebrities that we see now and years previous.
Yeah, and I guess there's some parallels really that I think, like, who were the two most famous women around that time? Audrey Hepburn and then Marilyn. And Audrey Hepburn was like the natural, really petite, straight up and down kind of a silhouette. And Marilyn was sort of that womanly figure.
Bombshell.
Made that a thing. And the Kardashians have done that, whether you like them or not. They've represented a body type that hadn't been represented for a bit, whether it's real anymore or not. But there's probably that similarity of, we had the 90s and still supermodels are just crazy thin, and even Instagram, you just kind of find everyone who seems to have, be crazy slim. So then these women who have a bit more shape to them, there's probably a similarity there. But yeah, it's just kind of funny what her fascination though as well with Marilyn. I feel like she just goes through these phases, right? Like, that is so far from her weird Balenciaga phase that she's been going through.
I think that Kim wants to be an icon.
For sure.
And there's...
Because I sent you an article that the Daily Mail wrote, shock horror, it wasn't nice, but it was sort of like she's so attention seeking that she just knows the attention this is going to get. But I don't think it's even the attention thing. I think she just wants to be she wants to be remembered. She wants to go down in history.
Yeah, I think it is that. I think a few years ago, and I could be wrong, but Kanye West kind of referred to her. This is when he was still trying to like pursue Kim, or it was early on in their marriage. And I think Kanye West had referred to her as like the Mona Lisa or Cleopatra of our time, basically hinting at like she's the most beautiful woman alive today. Really, really bold statement. I mean, but you know, it's Kanye, whatever. It doesn't have to make sense, but yeah. And it was that idea of both of them really as a duo were really laser focused on making Kim an icon of the time. And, you know, when she does things like dress up as Selena for Halloween or Cher as Halloween, you know, trying to fit into Marilyn Monroe's dress, wear kind of archival pieces from, I don't know, Azadina Liar or like all these other brands for like the 90s fashion heyday. She's always pulling on like, I don't know, the golden era or like an iconic woman, or I think she's definitely trying to craft herself that sort of lane for herself so that in 10 years time 100% we will think of Kim Kardashian as the woman of the 2010s.
Yeah. Interesting. What is your fashion story?
Well, my fashion story, it's not really a story, to be honest. It's more of like kind of like me admitting something. So the weekend just gone.
I mean, you've got a lot to admit here.
So weekend just gone. I wanted to wear you know me. I like to think of my outfits in advance. I'm really nerdy like that. And I
or envisage whatever.
Yeah, I'm kind of
you dream up your
if I've got an event, it doesn't even have to be a special event, or I just like to know what I'm wearing in advance because I hate to panic about what I'm wearing on the day. So I knew I wanted to wear my mum jeans, staple pair of jeans. I wear them all the time. They're just like easy, go with any top, go with any jacket, whatever, easy to wear. I pulled them out because I was like, I need to know if I need to iron these things. And they had about 6 holes all around the bum area. Yeah, you know, like on
moths?
No. So these were just like holes that jeans get after a certain
just from like wear and tear. Okay.
Wear and tear, like round the pockets.
Fine.
At the crotch. So many holes. And you know what? I still wore them.
Yeah. You know what? If I look at certain clothes, like, you know, there's always certain clothes that you do wear time and time again. And then when you look closer, you're like, oh, there's got a bit of wear and tear in that. But once you know it, you never forget that you're wearing sort of something with some holes in.
Well, that's the thing. I was wearing an extra long shirt, so I don't think anyone.
I don't think you're flashing anyone.
Yeah, I wasn't flashing anyone. But it was just like jeans is one of those things that you can wear when they're absolutely battered.
Yeah.
And still wear them. And I have them on my floor folded up because I was saying to like Mr. Big, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna throw these out. Yeah, they're gone now. But then I thought about it and I was like, am I gonna throw them out? I think I'm just gonna keep them.
Keep them.
I'm gonna wear them again, aren't I?
Because also, if they fit right, even if you bought the identical pair, which probably doesn't exist because they sort of try and at least redefine things slightly, it doesn't necessarily mean it's right the way they've been washed. Like all of that stuff really counts.
Yeah, I suppose so. I just think that it's very difficult to throw away I know jeans is one of those things.
I rarely, and like the amount of, like, my uniform used to be like black jeans and a top, or black jeans and a big t-shirt. The amount of black jeans that I have that are various shades of like light grey, I mean, they're not that bad, but they're not black anymore.
Yeah,
you know, they're like faded down, that I need to get rid of. But I'm sort of like, but why would I throw away jeans? You know?
And you feel kind of proud when you see the wear and tear. You're like, I've got my cosplay.
Yeah. Yeah, so true.
We interrupt this broadcast to say, go follow us on Instagram. Our handle is @StyleOverSubstance pod. There you'll find our weekly fashion topics, all the stuff that we discuss in each episode, and our polls.
Or reach out to us at StyleOverSubstancePodcast@gmail.com for new suggestions of topic discussions, or even to share your own fashion stories. We also have a YouTube channel, Style Over Substance Podcast, if you'd rather listen to our episodes over there.
Back to the episode.
Shall we get on to the main topic for this week?
We should get on to the main topic. Go for it.
So this was really inspired by your holiday that you've just come back from. And we wanted to talk about the pervasiveness of fashion. What do we mean by that? Well, fashion is like so ubiquitous to like our lives, how we see ourselves, what we spend our money on. Obviously on this podcast, we talk about it a lot. It's been part of our careers. And the fact that you went, you know, to a foreign country, you were in a completely remote area. I think you were in like the desert or something.
Yeah.
And you said that you had come across people who lived quite modest lives, nothing flashy, but quite traditional, modest lives. And some of the women there had like fake Chanel bags or something. And it's the fact that, obviously, in this example, it's the idea that luxury fashion can still be admired, sought after, can travel to these remote places where people still want it in their lives. But fashion in general can be so important and so crucial to lots of people around the world, regardless of whether they can afford it or not. So we wanted to discuss really that broader topics of like how important is fashion on our lives and just wider society.
Yeah, and you know what this makes me think of? Makes me think of that scene in The Devil Wears Prada, which is probably the best scene in the film, where Andy, played by Anne Hathaway, is laughing in a meeting when they're discussing two different belt colors, and oh my god, they're so different, but they look the same to anyone who doesn't maybe work in fashion. And she's like, aren't they the same? And that's when Meryl delivers this thing of like, oh, you think you're so above it, you don't realize that that hand-me-down jumper that you're wearing was actually selected in this room, and the Gap copied it because YSL did a whole thing on it, and then this brand did, and that those decisions actually come from somewhere. Like the color palette from Zara and from H&M doesn't just come from nowhere, it's inspired by something. And so that's kind of what it makes me think of, is that I was in sort of deep countryside in Africa where these people live off the land, they're having to wash their clothes in a river, but they have a faux Chanel. How do they know what that is? How is that infiltrated there? Are they even like aware? One of my tour guides had fake Yeezys on, and you know when you're like, this is madness that this has so traveled to places where they don't have satellite discs, and yeah, they might have some mobile phones kind of to share in the community or whatever, but they're not watching the Chanel runway show and coveting a Chanel bag. So how has fashion trickled through even to the most remote places? It's just like it reminds you how important the industry is.
Yeah,
it's just clothes, but it's one of the biggest industries and most impactful industries there is.
You're right. The example you gave for the Devil Wears Prada film is like what we saw in the past year or two, Bottega green.
Yeah.
I mean, if I say Bottega green, you know the shade of green
I know
I'm
exactly
talking about.
the shade of green you mean.
And you can get that shade of green in a lot of stores now, or a lot of shops, online
like you
stores.
can get a Zara faux double flat bag or faux boy bag in that Bottega green.
And you're right that these decisions are made, you know, in certain boardrooms or design houses or couture houses or whatever, and they do permeate into our everyday lives, even for people who don't follow it, don't particularly care about it, you know, or claim they don't really care about it or trivialize it. But yeah, it's so true. I have a question for you, actually, because it's kind of an assumption that many of us make about fashion, but I don't entirely agree with it. And I don't think we've ever had a discussion about it. So really often we hear people say things like, fashion is the way that I express myself. I express how I feel, my mood, who I am as a person, how I want to present to the world. And I agree to some extent. I agree that, like, for me personally, fashion is important in terms of how I present myself to the world or how I want to be seen. And I don't doubt that for anyone else. And you've said on a number of occasions that fashion for you depends a lot on your mood of the day and how you feel about yourself. And if it's sunny, or if it's rainy, or if it's, you know, you're in a good mood and whatnot. And again, I really agree with that. But what I disagree with is that the sort of attitude, that we should take with fashion? Should it be the way that we express ourselves? Like, or should we express ourselves in more meaningful ways than just our clothes?
I mean, for sure, we should use our words. And I think we're getting better at that as a society. But I also think it's really nice to express yourself that way. And I think we've been really fortunate that when we were younger, trend was sort of leaving the world. There were still like cool things to wear or whatever, but we've essentially grown up in a very trendless world. But yeah, I think that I think we're really lucky that we don't all have to dress the same. And if you want to express yourself, when we grew up, it was maybe like emo or gothic or I don't know, there's so many different things. But what I will say is, we went to a school with uniform. We all wore our uniform differently. You know, some people rolled up their skirts, or some people styled it slightly differently. And so I think that that's almost an interpretation in itself. I wouldn't say the way I wore my school uniform was a reflection on myself. I'm a goody-goody, so I didn't roll up my skirt. I didn't really care.
But that is a reflection of how goody-goody you were.
But that's a reflection of my personality. That's not like, I want to look nice, but I probably didn't look nice. But that was my inner personality of like, I can't possibly roll up my skirt or, you know, break.
Isn't that a reflection of yourself, though? The fact
it is.
Yeah.
But I'm also someone who I like to feel nice. And did I maybe feel nice looking a bit frumpy in my long school skirt and blue jumper? I don't know.
Elongating, darling.
Like, I don't think I looked cute, but equally, that wasn't even on my radar. I wasn't worrying about that. Yeah, it's so funny. It's so funny what we use fashion for. And yeah, it's so bizarre. We were talking earlier on our group chat about, you know, holiday style and how we sort of dream up looking a certain way on holiday. That's one of the few times that I still apply that. I feel like day-to-day life, I mean, you could, on a different day of the week, you could catch me in a whole different array of things, depending on how much I can be bothered, all of that stuff. I'm sort of quite content that that's the roller coaster of my wardrobe and of my expression. But I don't know. Like, would you want to be told what to wear every day?
No, I wouldn't. I think it's also dangerous for us to like kid ourselves that we're expressing ourselves from our clothes, and that this
because
is
you're I guess you're saying like someone chose that for us, so we're actually not expressing anything. We're expressing what someone decided for us to express.
Exactly. And I think that this is it. I think this is where I'm getting to. It's like we try to pretend like we're being individuals in what we're wearing, when really we are buying into things or labels. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with a label. I live in a label as well. But we buy into micro trends and micro labels so that as human beings, that's how we identify each other by. And I don't think we should kid ourselves in thinking that I'm an individual because I have a nose ring. No, there's loads of people with a nose ring. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or I also think that it's dangerous because we only just feed into this never-ending cycle of consumerism and fashion. Really, we need to like stop leaning so heavy into buying stuff or buying fashion or buying into fashion as a way to self-express, you know? Maybe we should like take up a hobby in order to like self-express. I don't know. That's kind of always my thought at the back of my head.
Yeah, and that's actually really interesting. And I guess what inspired this with those people wearing those things is they're probably totally unaware of that. And we're sort of somewhat aware of it. We're somewhat aware that we're buying into what someone wants us to buy into, and oh my god, that's the Bottega green, I can't afford that, so I'm going to get it in this way, and I don't even realize that I'm buying into the Bottega green in that way, but I'm drawn to it because I've seen it and it's on my radar. And so but there are also probably other things that we buy into where we're totally unaware of why we've decided that's for us. And that's what these people probably had done, is that they've got these things and are probably a bit more unaware of why they've come to be. And I think there's a bigger juggernaut or whatever behind the scenes that I think we care to believe at times or care to realize.
Yeah.
Dressing us.
Yeah.
And that's funny though, because there are people who'll be so not fashion conscious or think they're not fashion conscious, but technically are.
Yeah, I agree. I do have some figures that I want to share with you in regards to how, as a country, listeners, we live in the UK, if you can't tell from our accents, how us Brits like to spend our money on clothing.
Oh wow.
How much we spend. And I want to get your opinion on, do you think it's a lot? Do you think it's too little? And other things like that. Okay. So according to Statistica, in 2021, us as a country, the UK, we spent £37.3 billion on clothing. Is that a lot to you?
Yeah.
It's not.
That's a lot.
Okay. And if we drill down into that, because it's not just like clothing and fashion is important to us because it's what we put on every single day, but it has a massive impact on our monthly budgeting and how we spend our salaries. So there's this website called Nimblefins, and they actually suggested that we should spend 5% of our take-home pay on clothes. Yeah, they went down. Like there's a table and they like drill down in, if you earn this much, if you're on this salary, this is how much we suggest you should spend on clothing. And they say,
I don't think a single person does that.
Huh?
Not a single person does that, surely.
No one does that. But I want to get your 5%.
Are you having a laugh?
Well, do you think that's a little bit? That's
too little, yeah.
Okay, so hold on. So based on a £20,000 annual salary, you would take home £17,000, yeah, after tax. And they're saying, based on that, 5%, you should spend £71 a month on clothing. Oh my God, look at your face. Yeah. Yep. I'm going to show you the table later and you can have a...
Wow.
Yeah.
I definitely spend more than 5% of my salary on clothes. And that's going to have to change soon. And actually, you know what? I had a real realization. I bought lots of stuff before holiday and packed loads of stuff for holiday. And it was that thing we discussed before, that why do summer clothes make you sort of feel some kind of way? And I've just got into this realization that what looks nice is simple. I'm like, yeah, okay, there's time for some fun pieces. But I'm sort of getting to a point of, you can effortless chic lasts for forever. And so those are the things to spend money on, rather than, I really like that, like the amount of blouses I have, you know, or whatever, that realistically also only kind of look nice with skinny jeans, and that's not a vibe anymore. So then I'm sort of holding on to them, but I haven't worn them with mum jeans because they don't look nice that way. And so, yeah, I'm trying to be much more conscious of that stuff. But I definitely spend more than that. That makes me feel sick.
What ratio or portion of your take-home monthly pay do you think you spend on clothing? Like
too
a fifth?
Much. Far too much. I don't even want to know. Like an embarrassing amount.
I mean, we've been friends forever, but I'm learning so much about your spending habits on this podcast.
Yeah, I don't think we need to assess my spending habits, you know. Can I work on it? Yes. But I wouldn't say mine is just on clothes. It will be on sort of makeup, beauty products, and homeware as well.
Okay.
I sort of encompass that all into sort of one. And I will say my clothes is less so. I really do.
You're knocking onto something.
I will say my clothes are less so these days, but I also don't know if I'm kidding myself, you know.
Yeah,
You think you're under that 5%?
Do I think I'm under or over?
Under.
Oh, I don't know. I'm too scared to do the calculation of my annual spend of clothing.
No, of course,
clothing.
but
maybe I should. You know,
I think you don't buy often, but I think when you do, you buy a nice purchase.
Oh, well, thanks.
But you do. I think you think about something and you might not buy 5 things from Zara, but you might buy one thing from somewhere elevated. I
do think that I always sit on any potential purchase. Yeah. I do think about it for a while, but I will say that I'm a clothes shopper, you know. I'm not stopping anytime soon, and I've got a lot of clothes. So I'm I'm a consistent shopper.
Wow.
Wedded to the game. Yeah,
we play into the hands of the merchandisers. But yeah, tell me, what is your theory on how faux Yeezys and faux Chanel can infiltrate countries? Not that it shouldn't, because every country can have that stuff, but a country where you wouldn't expect to see it.
Obviously we've got the internet.
Yeah.
But then it's not just about being exposed to something that's nice. It's, I think, having persistent exposure to things that ultimately all of that exposure adds up to you desiring something. I think in much the same way, when we look at luxury brands, we want to buy into a lifestyle that we yet don't have ourselves. I think that can be a big reason as to why people in remote areas, in remote parts of certain countries, might have Yeezys and fake Chanel bags. But then also there's a massive counterfeit industry out there, and we might not be personally exposed to it on a day-to-day, but there's so many, like, you know, when you go on holiday, these counterfeit markets where big like Saturday markets are put on, and a lot of the vendors there have all these fake designer bags. All of that, whatever doesn't get sold might just get, you know, given to someone in like the village or whatever, or you know, they're being sold a lot of these times in these markets. They're being sold by people who are quite poor themselves and are kind of forced to sell this stuff to tourists or to locals or whatever. So I think that that's how those sorts of goods end up being worn by people in remote areas who normally don't have access to Chanel. So I think, yeah, the counterfeit industry and market is huge and is able to reach a lot more people than luxury that can, you know, you have to have a spare $5,000 to spend on a bag. Whereas if you can get it for literally like £40 or something like that, they're able to reach a lot more people.
Yeah.
I don't know. What's your thought on it? What did you take away from it?
I don't know. I just kind of find it funny that, I don't know. I just kind of find it bonkers. But then, if you're going to have a pair of shoes or if you're going to have a bag, why wouldn't it be also inspired by that too? Why do they have to sort of be practical, or why? Yeah, it's sort of, there's no reason it shouldn't be, but I just kind of find it funny that what it represents essentially is, of course, she's not sat there with a handbag that's worth more than her whole life.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that bag represents a handbag that's worth £7,000. Mm-hmm. And what that can, I don't know, it's this anomaly of what that would do to your lifestyle is totally transform it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And obviously we don't all wear a faux Chanel to look like we have that money, but essentially we do.
Yeah, essentially we do.
That's essentially what it is that we want people to potentially believe that we have one,
that we're rich,
you know, or like appear to be a little bit similar to people who do. So I don't know, it's a funny one. I don't know how it gets there, but it makes sense to me somewhere in my head.
But, I mean, there's been a lot of discussion recently about who deserves to have a Birkin bag and all of this stuff, and who deserves to have the latest Chanel and all the colours and whatever bullshit. And essentially our discussion is, should you spend that kind of money on this stuff? And should you be begging to have this stuff if you cannot comfortably afford it? And so that makes me think, like, us two, we're regular gals, just earning regular money, nothing special. And yet we still desire to have those things. Are we just as quote unquote funny and peculiar for having designer goods as that woman who lives chumps, as that woman who lives a simpler, poorer lifestyle than us?
For sure.
Also has
there's nothing to differentiate us from her.
Mm-hmm.
Like realistically, because she might be living in more of a less fortunate circumstance than us, but the reality also is that we shouldn't be aspiring to that either. You know, we're actually have more in common with her than we do with the likes of the people who buy it.
Yeah, and I think that,
and I think more people
fashion-
need to realize that that there's nothing wrong with realizing that like I shouldn't be trying to own that.
And I don't need it, you know.
Yeah, and I don't need it. And actually, why don't I spend within my means? I mean, I don't know, the idea that I'm a big believer of the people who should own certain things, like who should be allowed to have a Birkin bag if you afford it. But then equally, there's, you know, would that just be the whole Kardashian clan taking the lot?
The thing is,
I don't care if they do take the lot.
Fashion
not getting a Birkin.
Yeah, fashion is one of those things that it's an easy way for you to buy into a lifestyle. So, like, for example, we can't afford apartments and mansions in Kensington, but if we do want to like flex for a weekend and appear to be rich, we could buy a Gucci bag or a YSL one or whatever, or a watch or a Chanel pair of shoes or something. It's like, it kind of allows us to live the fantasy without actually having to do everything that entails to have that kind of money. And so it's so easy for us to be like, to buy into that. It's so available. It's everywhere. That's the thing. Fashion is everywhere. Most of the high streets are dominated by clothing shops, more than cafes, more than cinemas and bowling alleys and all of that. And we can't escape it because we know that it's such an easy thing to acquire. Can go and get a £10 pair of shorts or something, easy, off the shelf, ready to wear. And it's easy for us to dispose of it as well. And we talk about cost per wear a lot. And it's that really like short-lived cycle that all our clothing lives through as well, that makes fashion so fleeting and also like such a massive part of our lives.
Yeah, and I think there's a funny thing of when you talk about that we could go and buy a Gucci bag, or we can go buy whatever shoes, but that's all for whoever's in the know. That's what fashion is. Fashion is essentially a club. It is a club or whatever of those who are in the know, that they recognize the Gucci symbol. I mean, I saw someone on holiday and I'm hoping it's not a real Gucci belt, but she was wearing it upside down. The G's weren't even the right way up. So I'm thinking, babe, if you've spent £300 on that, I really would hope that you know the right way the G's go. But maybe she just didn't, like, who knows? And there's a really funny thing. So I have some Chanel espadrilles that I bought about 5 years ago on eBay. And I love them. I don't wear them enough. And actually they got a little scuff, so I was a bit sad. But anyway, it's fine. Things are to be worn. But I had a little friend sit next to me on the plane. He wasn't my friend. And he was making conversation. I think he thought I was a bit of a wacky dresser. And he was like, oh my God, like, you know, your shoes look so different. Like, you know, where did you get them from? Were they from, you know, I went to Morocco. Were they from a stall in Morocco? And I was just kind of like, oh, no, I got them in England. It's like, oh, like, where are they from? I was like, oh, like, you know, just somewhere. Because I didn't want to be like, babe, they're Chanel. Because that's not me, and I'm not wearing them for the attention of it. I like, would I like it if someone sort of clocked them as like nice shoes? Sure, but I'm not going to go out of my way to say, no, I spent probably a bit more money on these shoes than I should have. And so that's the funny thing with fashion, right? Is that like these people who maybe are remote, are they even in the know? I hope so. But it also takes someone to be in the know to get the reference too. Yeah,
you're right. In that, I can sit here.
It relies on that. It relies on the reference, someone getting it.
She might not even have a clue what.
She might not have a clue. She just might think it stands for like, I don't know. She might just think it's a pretty pattern.
Yeah. And then we're sitting here saying, oh, how does she even
relate to the like we don't know. I wish we had her as a guest, you know.
Yeah. I don't speak Arabic, but yeah.
No, neither. And she spoke Berber, so that's a totally different language.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's interesting, isn't it?
It's really interesting. Like
it's a club.
And like one of our good friends jokes is she doesn't really get fashion, but she does. Like she would recognize and she knows if certain things or certain labels. But there are some people who would walk down the street and wouldn't clock that someone's got an Hermes Birkin and they just spent 30 grand on it, and they wouldn't recognize that someone's wearing the Valentino rock studs that have been so hard to get their hands on. They wouldn't recognize that. And so then does the fashion flex work? Of course it's for yourself, partially it's for yourself, but a lot of these things, especially like the Hermes thing, it's a flex. So if people don't recognize your flex, then
what was it all for?
What was it all for?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. So in my research for this episode and kind of just mulling about in my head, I did come across some articles that talked about the value of your wardrobe if you had to replace everything in it.
Oh, don't.
So like insurance claims after burglaries and whatnot.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I thought this would be a good indication as to like how much we invest in this area of our life.
Wow.
So one of the figures that I actually came across, and this was quoted by Glamour magazine from confused.com, you know, they do the insurance.
Yeah.
You could search different insurance companies. They said on average to replace a British woman's wardrobe is, do you want to guess?
No.
No, come on, give me a number. It's going to be low. It's going to be lower than you think.
5 grand.
Yeah, £4,000.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
no. That got me thinking. That got me thinking off of what you've said. When I saw the figure, I was like, oh, that's not a lot. But then I thought to myself, not everyone's you, Miranda. You know, I'm not saying that my wardrobe is particularly expensive, but not everyone's you inclined in that you like to shop and that you like to buy certain things and that your wardrobe is an essential part of who you are as a person.
Well, it's a collection over so many years. I still have stuff from when I was 18. You know, like that's the difference is and my foot size hasn't changed.
You're a hoarder.
For sure. But my foot size hasn't changed since I was 11. Not that I still have shoes from then. But I mean, I just But also, okay, remove expensive handbags from it first of all. Yeah, the average person doesn't have that. I would say that's a man's wardrobe. I think men are bringing that figure down if it includes men.
Yeah, they said women's.
I just don't believe that.
However, now I've got another statistic which might corroborate.
Is that at the value of the object at the time?
Well, insurance,
you know, like a used pair of jeans isn't going to be.
It would be in order for you to replace like for like, wouldn't it?
Oh,
so I've got another really old statistic though. It's from 2013. So any figure I give you now, you can bet your bottom dollar that it's worse.
More.
It's more. It's more in 2022.
Babe.
Yeah, and also we've just become like shopping crazy, I think.
Yeah.
So a website called First Mile, and they said that more than 1 million Brits use charity shops regularly as their main source of shopping for clothing. Now, we've kind of talked about vintage recently, a few months ago, and how, you know, when we grew up, kind of buying things which were seen as vintage became massive. And it's only just gotten bigger and bigger now. Secondhand, pre-loved, vintage kind of dressing of previous decades and thrifting and all of that has become more popular. So I can actually imagine that, you know, a lot of young people nowadays aren't embarrassed by shopping secondhand and shopping charity shops. So I can imagine that there's more than 1 million Brits today who are buying most of their
for sure. And also I think
and that would bring down the overall value of your wardrobe.
This doesn't just sound pessimistic, but I think a lot of people like to think that they would say they would do that as well. Whether they do or not is different. Just to probably be a bit more conscious of their impact and stuff. But that's interesting. I feel like that could be an episode in itself of the value of a wardrobe.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, that's probably that figure, £4,000 is based on insurance claims, I'm sure. And it really depends on how much your insurance even extends to, because you're not going to claim for 10 grand if your insurance policy only covers you for 4. Do you know what I mean? There's a limit. And most people don't really like to insure their shit for the real value that they are, because you don't want a higher premium. But to probably buy back the key items in your wardrobe, 4,000 seems a bit more fair. But then I think it's just really that figure comes from most people don't shop as much or care to buy clothes as often or expensive clothes as often as a lot of us younger lot like to. So that's why the figure might sound really low to us.
That's only right. Okay. Let's say on average these days, for the sake of maths, is 20 quid, which isn't true. It's only 200 items.
Yep. And I can tell you,
I'm not accepting that.
I can tell you something. Yeah. For me personally, I'm not accepting that.
I'm not accepting that. The 200 items, and that includes like
underwear.
That includes underwear. Okay.
Swimsuits.
It includes gym clothes. It includes trainers. Trainers these days are not under £100.
Oh no, they're not.
And even if you just got one pair, that's already eliminated quite a bit. If you've got a pair of jeans, you're expecting probably 40, 50 quid, easy. No. Don't buy that. What are you getting for 20 quid? Maybe
that's made me want
to.
That's made me want to calculate how much I spend a year on clothing. I might, you know what, I might search my emails for all of my, you know, you get those, your order has been confirmed. I'm going to tally up all of those emails.
Yeah, I
don't total of them.
I don't need to know that. I mean, I do.
I need to be ashamed.
I should be ashamed. I am ashamed.
Okay, my final thoughts is that I think we give way too much bandwidth and attention and money and emotional distress on fashion and our clothing. And I say that because going back to the idea of like, I plan outfits for future occasions. I like doing it. I find it fun for myself. And it's just a nicer experience to get dressed on the day when I know what I'm going to wear already. But I think I've said to you in the past, like, you know what? No one cares more about what I'm wearing than myself.
Yeah.
Like I visualize myself wearing something and people seeing me wear it when really no one cares. Because when I think about the outfits other people wore on the occasion, I don't give a shit.
I don't think about it much, yeah.
And I don't really remember much of the detail. I will assess what they're wearing and make a mental note or judgment. but it really doesn't matter in comparison to what I wore myself.
But it's that time old thing, especially, you know, we're probably our most self-conscious in swimwear on a beach. You care more about what you look like in that moment than anything else, and that's how everyone feels. So you might think someone's judging you of like, oh, do those bottoms fit her? They're worrying that about themselves. So they're not worrying it about you. And I think that kind of does apply, especially for like when you think, I'm going to wear this for an occasion, like at a wedding or whatever. People are more concerned about how they look in their dress than how you do in yours. We're sort of self-obsessed in that sense. And like, personally for me, I hope I'm not too self-obsessed, but it's more about the fashion moment. It's like, this is what I envisaged. I hope that worked. You know, like I hope, I chose to wear something a bit more out there. Or if you wear like a hat that's not really what you normally wear, you kind of probably spend the whole time like, do I look like a plonker?
Do I feel comfortable?
Yeah.
Do my feet hurt?
I don't know if I pulled this off as much as I hoped I would.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what was I thinking? I would be that baddie wearing this.
I'm not this girl. Yeah.
Someone took a picture of me and it wasn't hitting like it was supposed to in the picture, was it?
Oh, it happens too often.
So yeah, I think that fashion is incredibly important in our daily lives, but maybe it shouldn't be.
So should our poll be, do we give fashion too much impetus?
Oh, yes. Love it.
Coming from two fashion heads.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool.
I think so. Cool. Well, that's it, isn't it?
That's it. Let me...
Well, thanks again for tuning in to another episode of Style Over Substance, guys.
Don't forget to check out our Instagram or Spotify to respond to this week's poll.
Bye.
Bye.